2 o'clock. Welcome to July's Planning Committee. I'm going to pass to Maura for notice of someone's in the meeting, and members of attendance, our apologies as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Planning Committee, which will be a hybrid meeting to be conducted remotely via WebEx and also physically in the chamber, Derry Road, Strabane.
Right there, that.
You want to come back to?
Right there.
All right. You.
Somebody's on. Alan Brennan.
Alderman Bresson, could you make your mic, please?
Thank you, Chair. On Wednesday, the 5th of July, 2023. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here, Maura.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey. Alderman Derek Hussey. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Okay. I'll come back, Chair. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Maura.
Alderman Derek Hussey. Councillor John Boyle, apologies in advance. Councillor Sean Fleming.
And Sean.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
Sure, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney.
Apologies.
Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And Sean.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
On Sean Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade. Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
On Sean.
Thank you. Just go back and check. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Online, Maura. Thank you.
Thank you. The Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Item 3, broadcast statement by Chair. I'd like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the Council office or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Item 4, declaration of members' interests. Members, any declarations now or at any time during the meeting, please feel free to offer them. Open for decision. Item 5, chairperson's business. I'm going to pass to Maura. Maura's got several items there for members. Thank you, Maura.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, members, I just want to draw your attention to correspondence that was sent to yourselves on Monday in regard to Planning Committee business, and we thought it would be helpful to see that there has been an outcome of the JR of the PAC decision on Ballygodden Road appeal. So it was just to remind members that that was sent on Monday. Also, just to highlight, we have a verbal update in terms of a potential enforcement summons that we want to bring to members' attention, but we will do that under confidential business later in the agenda. Also, members, we've got quite a lot of business that's backing up, and we have a few potential applications that may be ready to be determined in committee in advance of recess, but we're not sure. We're waiting on consultees and various responses, but we're just putting it out there that potentially we could have another committee before recess, a special committee, but it's really to do with some urgent applications that may need to go to committee before recess. But at this point, there's no guarantee, so I'm just putting it out there. In terms of late items, Chair, do you want me to proceed?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Members, as usual, we have a number of late items on relating to applications on the agenda. Firstly, I just want to point out in terms of item 1 and item 2, there were a number of emails and letters of late items regarding these applications that were sent to the chair, myself, and to the officers. They've been circulated, and as a result of the requests and the issues raised, we've deferred those applications from the schedule today, and they will be heard in September. Also, to highlight to members, it has come to our attention on item 11. Well, there's a technical difficulty with the report, and officers have picked up a constraint that they wish to raise with the applicant and also a potential consultant or potential consultee. So it's best, it would be risk to proceed with that application today. So apologies, we have to withdraw that from the schedule for a technical reason. So in terms of the late items, members, item 4, which will be heard today, there's an information there in regard to a road layout drawing. That's really just an update in terms of PSD and was within the application, but it's just been submitted. And item 5, members, we have also an objection that we wanted to bring to members' attention in order for it to be considered before any decision made today. And that's just been highlighted in your pack. But Sarah will go into the detail of that in her presentation in order to ensure you're aware of it. It's very short and limited, you'll see. Item number 6 is an email from the agent and some documents. Item number 7, we have an email from the agent. Item number 8, we have an email from the agent. And item number 9, we have an agent statement and information. And that should be it, members. And clearly we have to make sure we have looked at those items before we deal with those particular cases and make any decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maura. Members, any comments in relation to Chair's business? Members, so just being informed there is an issue with the volume and it's affecting the quality of hearing for the members, for the visitors in the public gallery. So we're going to take 5 minutes just to see if we can get that sorted. In the meantime, perhaps members could take this opportunity to read the late items that have come in, and then we can carry on with the agenda thereafter. Members, are you happy to carry on? Yeah, public, let me move on. Okay. Next item, item 6, matters arising from the open minutes of the planning committee meeting held on Monday, the 27th of March, 2023. Item number 7, matters arising from the open minutes of the planning committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 28th of March, 2023. Any matters arising? Number 8, matters arising from the open minutes of the planning committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 7th of June, 2023. Any members, any matters arising? Number 9, matters arising from the open minutes of the reconvened planning committee held on Thursday, the 8th of June, 2023. No matters arising. Okay. Okay, members, just before we move on to item number 10, the planning applications themselves, for your own purposes, the running order is as follows: number 3, number 4, number 10, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 12. So, members, moving on now. First item of business on the planning applications is item number 3. Application reference LA 11 2021 0837. And it is. And it's Andre. Sarah's going to take this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Item 3, LA 11 2021 08370. This is an outline application for the erection of a building on a vacant site to provide mixed-use development with ground floor commercial and retail with apartments above. The site is 145 Strand Road, Derry, and the recommendation is to refuse permission. So this is the site location plan. The site's located between 143 and 147 Strand Road. It is an existing vacant undeveloped site located between an auto parts shop and Meadowbank House and retail unit. The site fronts onto Strand Road, which has a mixture of commercial and residential uses in the immediate area. To the rear of the site are residential properties of 2-storey terrace dwellings at Barry Street and Meadowbank Avenue. An existing laneway separates the proposed site from the dwellings. The site is located in the central area on unzoned land and located within a flat zone as defined in the Derry Area Plan. The application site is also located in a reservoir flood inundation area. So this is a photograph of the site from Strand Road. So it's the gap site between the two buildings there. And this is the aerial photograph view of the application site. And a photograph of the existing laneway located to the rear of the site from Meadowbank Avenue. And this is the other view of the existing laneway accessing the rear of the site from Barry Street. So in terms of representations, 312 objections were received in the application and raised issues such as parking, accessing and servicing. There was concerns about existing parking problems around the site and wider locality, streets at full capacity due to lack of curtilage parking and local businesses attracting intermittent parking. The parking survey was conducted during the COVID period. There was concerns raised as to where residents would park, the location of loading bays to be located to serve the commercial units. Barry Street used to be a play street with resident-only parking, and parking in the adjacent long supermarket car park wouldn't be open to any potential residents. There were also issues raised in relation to building design, and especially in terms of the height of the building, compromising residential amenity of existing streets in Meadowbank Avenue and Barry Street, potential high turnover of residents, loss of light, security of the laneway to the rear of the site, odour and vermin nuisance due to bin storage. Foundations of the existing housing would be affected by construction, neighbour notification of residents in Barry Street, no demand for residential and commercial units in the area, and unsuitable for retired and disabled occupants. So a detailed consideration of the objections is set out in report, but to summarise, the site is located in the central area and designated flat zone. The requirement for in-curtilage parking is therefore not an essential requirement of the central area policies of the Derry Area Plan. The parking assessment submitted in the application puts a greater emphasis on the use of public transport, cycling and walking to and from the site and sustainable travel options. With regards to the building heights and design, officers would advise that if permission were to be granted, that these elements could be conditioned for agreement at reserved matter stage to ensure that residential amenity of the neighbouring properties would not be impacted on. So in terms of the consultation responses, again, this is all set out in your report. A majority of them have no objections, subject to condition. Environmental Health have recently advised that a noise assessment is required and also require clarification on piling or potential piling for the site. And officers again would consider that if permission were to be granted, that these elements could be conditioned. DFI Rivers have advised that the site is the reservoir inundation maps indicate the sites in a potential area of inundation emanating from Craig and Lower and Upper reservoirs, and therefore the proposal would fail to comply with FLD 5 of PPS 15. So in terms of the policy assessment, and in particular the Derry Area Plan, the site is in the central area and flat zone where there is a presumption in favour of flat development. Proposal CA3 defines the Strand Road as primary retail frontage and therefore accepting the principle of the retail element of the proposal. The area plan does encourage mixed use in the central area. The scale of the retail would not be detrimental or detract from existing retail uses in the central area or commercial core. If permission were to be granted, design building height could be conditioned to take into account any potential impacts on the neighbouring properties. With regards to parking, the site is located in Zone B, which requires both operational and non-operational parking. So for the residential element, the site is within walking distance to the city centre, located on a main transport corridor, which is well served by bus routes. Officers consider the parking for the residential element would not be required if permission were to be granted, and DFI Roads have also provided a condition for travel cars to be provided for each unit. In terms of parking for the commercial units, operational parking would be required. A service management plan was submitted, and whilst it lacked in detail regarding deliveries, DFI Roads have not raised it as an issue. And again, a detailed service management plan for the site could be conditioned if permission were to be granted on the site. So parking has been considered against the benefit of redeveloping the vacant site on a main arterial route within the central area. The main key policy issue for this application is PPS 15 policy FLD 5, and that is development in proximity to reservoirs. So DFI Rivers reservoir flood inundation map indicates that the site is in a potential area of inundation emanating from Craig and Lower and Upper reservoirs. It has not been demonstrated that the condition, management and maintenance regime of Craig and Lower and Upper reservoirs is appropriate to provide sufficient assurance regarding reservoir safety to enable the development to proceed. DFI Rivers have carried out an assessment of flood risk to people at the site for an uncontrolled release of water emanating from Craig and Lower and Upper reservoirs, and the result is that the overall hazard rating at the site is considered high. This is considered by DFI to be an unacceptable combination of depth and velocity. There is a presumption against development located in areas where the flood risk assessment indicates potential for an unacceptable combination of depth and velocity. No flood risk assessment has been submitted to demonstrate an assessment of downstream flood risk in the event of a controlled release of water, an uncontrolled release of water due to reservoir failure, or a change in flow paths as a result of the proposed development, and that there are suitable measures to manage and mitigate the flood risk, including details of emergency evacuation procedures. So on this basis, the proposal is contrary to policy FLD 5, and officers' recommendation is to refuse permission. The reasons for refusal are set out in officer's report, and they're also on the slide as well for consideration. Thank you.
Next up is the agent speakers. Is Lee Kennedy or Michael Sullivan online there?
Yeah, I'm the chairman.
Well, you have 5 minutes, and I'm not sure how you want to use it, but if it's you speaking, then by all means, go ahead now, Lee. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm here today with Mr. Micheál Sullivan. He's the flood engineer. I'll give the presentation, then Micheál myself will be available to answer any questions. Firstly, it's strange to be involved with a planning application being presented to committee on refusal reasons outside of the applicant's control, but from the design team, we'd like to thank Sarah, James, Andre, and the entire planning team for their input and presentation of the application here today. Notably, the only refusal reasons are in relation to reservoir flooding, as set out under policy FLD 5 of PPS 15. The site is located in the Strand Road, will bring much needed commercial and residential accommodation to a highly accessible mixed-use location. It's a main arterial route into and out of the city. It's adjacent to a bus stop. It's well serviced with public transport, and it's in close proximity to all local amenities, the University of Ulster, and the key walkway with easy access into and out of the town centre. Unfortunately, the planning application is stalled in the planning system through no fault of the planning officers or the applicant, who has been left in limbo. To me, this is one of the most important strategic sites in Derry. It's become a piece of urban wasteland, derelict since 1974. It's a visual eyesore, detracts from the local character, and it needs to be redeveloped to enhance the local streetscape. The design team and the planning officers have been proactive and have been eager to see this site develop. This has not been an easy planning application to deal with. It's been in the system for 2 years and has undergone significant objection from members of the local resident association and a number of local businesses. The objectors have raised many genuine concerns which we feel, and the planning officers agree, have been addressed by the submission of many detailed reports at considerable expense to the developer. Namely, a car park assessment and travel plan has been submitted, a transport assessment form, service management plans, phase 1 and phase 2 contamination reports, acoustic reports, wastewater impact assessment reports, manhole survey reports, extended site survey taken on Barry Street and the Strand Road, and a Northern Ireland Water Solution Engineers report. We fully understand objectors may still have genuine concerns in relation to the height and the scale of this proposed building and its impact on their residential amenities through overlooking, overshadowing or loss of light. But these can easily be resolved with suitable planning conditions, restricting 1, the height of the building, and 2, the design of the building. And it's important to stress to members today, this is only an outline planning application for a decision in principle only. In relation to policy FLD 5 of PPS 15, this application is refused as the site is within the flood inundation area of both the Craigan upper and lower reservoirs. The applicant has no control of these reservoirs and cannot provide the safety certificates for the reservoirs to enable this development to proceed any further in the system. For Council to accept this refusal reason today by de facto places an embargo on all development within this reservoir flood inundation area. The reservoir flood inundation area provided by DFI Rivers has been designed on a maximum failure rate of the reservoir. If this occurs, realistically, this is either going to be caused by a terrorist attack or a doomsday situation of biblical proportions that will wipe out all buildings in its flow path. This will include half of the Glen Estate, all of Pennyburn Industrial Estate, Fort George, Phillip Street, Governor Road, Sainsbury's, and all the apartments along the quay, including our site. Flood risk assessment has not been provided, as to be honest, we already know the results, and it would have been another significant expense on behalf of the applicant. Recently, we've been advised by a local MLA at Derry City and Strabane District Council are at a very advanced stage of taking both reservoirs in charge. This is confirmed by an email from Karen Phillips to the MLA on the 17th of May. This email confirms that Council have approval to assume reservoir manager status, which they are processing and will hopefully complete very soon. Once this is complete, this will remove the objection to the scheme under policy FLD 5 and should allow the approval of this planning application. I trust this is acceptable and welcome any questions for Michael or Micheál and myself. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lee. Members have just been advised by Head of Planning that Neil Jenkinson is online from DFI Rivers, so in case any members want to ask any questions of Lee, But I'll move now to questions to any members have any questions for Lee or his associate. Alderman Hussey.
And thanks for your presentation. You mentioned there concerns at height and scale. Obviously, and it's an outline plan, and we don't have visual representation of what the height and scale might be. So compared to the buildings on either side, can you indicate some approximation of what sort of heights we're talking about?
Go ahead, Lee.
Yes, thank you for the question, Alderman. In terms of the heights, I would say that the site in itself could accommodate maybe a 3 to 4 story building, maybe a story above the Meadowbank house, which is on the left. I know that the car part shop on the right is 2 story, but the consideration will need to be given towards the properties to the rear, which are residential, and which I feel would need to be protected in terms of their residential amenity. So I would say possibly a 3 to 4 story building could accommodate the site, but we're wanting to address that during the reserve matters application.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Any follow-up, Alderman Hussey? Okay, members, any questions for the officer? Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair, and I wish you all the best in your 11 months ahead. This maybe isn't directed towards the officer. I think that the issue around FLD5 has been well rehearsed for people that were in the committee before. It is a challenge. It's been a challenge for our council, and for essentially for the length of time of this committee, it has been a barrier to any development along that flood innovation zone. See, it maybe a question to Lee or to Neil even, because we have recently passed or made a decision the council would progress. They take on the reservoir management responsibility, and we've received the assurances from senior council officers that that commitment they take on that role would be enough, would be sufficient to overcome some of the challenges that are presented by FLD5. And I have every confidence in our senior management within council that information has been accurate. We understand that there's complexities within that. There's some areas that are within the red zone that wouldn't be covered by the council taking on the responsible manager of the reservoir. But we have been given assurances that council's commitment would be enough to reassure DFI in relation to this policy, and this application has come very quickly on the back of the decision of council, and it looks as if the EFA haven't considered that. So I would be asking the question why. That's essential. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Neil, if you're online there, I hope you've heard Councillor Jackson's comments and question. I wonder, could you possibly address it for the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? I had a few issues with sound.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In the planning advisory and modelling unit that I work for, we take our lead from the DFI reservoir team with respect to whether a reservoir has condition assurance or responsible reservoir manager status. And the latest information we have from them is that this reservoir doesn't have condition assurance or the responsible reservoir manager status. What Councillor Jackson's saying, I know is true, that the council are making moves towards taking that on and become being, the word is probably attributed responsible reservoir manager status. And if that was to happen, then there would be no bar to development, even in the red zones. Once the reservoir is being responsibly managed, and that has been proven, the DFI, and that is ongoing. Our advice to the planning authority changes, and we would say that we would have no objection. But to the best of my knowledge, there is not no responsible manager status has been attributed. So we have taken it into account, but we don't act on the probability of something occurring in terms of, you know, the council taking it on. We have to take it from the point where it has been obtained or attained. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for that view there. Councillor Jackson, have you any follow-up?
Just for complete clarity, what you're saying, Neil, is council's commitment to become the responsible reservoir manager means nothing in relation to the policy test. Is that essentially what we're saying? Is the commitment doesn't mean anything? We need to actually complete the process.
Yes, my understanding, and this has happened in other councils, that the process has to be completed and the reservoir has to be given a clean bill of health by an all-reservoir panel engineer prior to responsible reservoir manager status being awarded, or I'm not sure what word to use for that, or obtained.
Thank you, Neil, for that clarity. Councillor Jackson, any follow-up? Thank you. Any more members have any questions? No. Any further questions for Mr. Jenkinson? No. Okay, members, so pass over to yourselves for you see the recommendation is to refuse the application. So I'll hear from yourselves, members. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, thank you.
Chair, I don't know if I'm going to get away with this, but given that all the refusal reasons are based in relation to FLD5, and we've all been part of the process of council taking on the reservoir management or the responsible reservoir management status. We know as members of council our commitment to that responsibility, and they all are the residents that live and businesses that are located within that innovation zone. I get with that in mind. I am proposing that we set aside the policy. We've taken into consideration the policy, but given the material consideration that council have made that commitment, I would propose that we set aside FLD5 and approve the application that's in front of us, and the knowledge that we know that we've made a firm commitment. They bring the reservoir, they take on that reservoir manager's responsibility, and they ensure that all health and safety works are carried out. It's within our gift, and we've made that commitment. So on that basis, I am content to propose that we accept and approve the application in front of us.
Okay, Councillor Jackson, so that's overturn the officer's recommendation at the moment. Councillor McDade.
Can I just ask a question? There was 312 objections. Just reading through it, are we satisfied that they are kind of being dealt with ahead of time? You know.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think the issue here is what we're trying to explain through the report is that it's an outline application, so really it's a red line on a map. We did get schematic elevations and block plans during the processing of the application, but essentially that will come forward in the reserve matters application, all the details, and all those issues will be looked at in detail at that time if members want to approve the application. The issues with parking, we've also explained that we wouldn't expect, given the arterial route, that the application's on. So in the event of an approval, we wouldn't be providing any car parking. So the likes of those issues, they're not going to be sorted out at the reserve matters stage.
Thank you. So just to get a good understanding, the only reason for the recommending of the refusal is based on the policy. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Proposal on the floor here, members. Does anybody listen to second?
Chair,
Alderman Hussey.
listen very carefully and thank Councillor Jackson for his input there. And I would be, on the basis of the rationale, I would be content to second that. I'm mindful that this is an outline application, but I would imagine that when it would come to a full application coming through, we would expect that the council reservoir management scheme would be in situ when it comes to that point, but we haven't got that far yet. But on the basis of what I've heard, I'm very content to second that proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Members, head of planning staff to come in on this matter. I'll let her know.
Just on the basis of the reasons, members, I would just suggest maybe do members want to consider putting any sort of condition in regard to that. So then when reserve matters or full application come in, that those matters could be dealt with. We could do that through a condition. I'm just making a suggestion. Sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
And just for clarification, in relation to the condition in relation to the flooding issue, or in relation to, because the other issues that have been raised as part of this report, but the only refusal reasons that are in front of us are in relation to FLD 5. So are you suggesting a condition around the reservoir management status of council,
Well,
which is outside the control of the applicant? That's essentially what I'm getting at.
It might be in terms of the timeline, but other than that, you're quite correct. You know, that it's outside the control of the applicant at this stage, and will be, but it might be in and around the timing of that. But I think, it's difficult. But anyway, I just threw it out there.
Well, I'm uncomfortable putting a condition on this application that is completely outside of the control of the applicant, and I don't think it's fair. But I'm open to suggestions from other members of the committee, but my own view.
Just to come back briefly, I mean, I have said, and we know this is an outline planning application, we would expect something coming through again. Then maybe the conditionality could be looked at that stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Any other members, any other comments before we go to a vote here? Andre, do you want to speak there?
Yeah, through the chair, for members' benefit, we can go through some of the draft conditions. Just if members want to input or put any new conditions on that we haven't considered. But Sarah can run through those now for you.
Okay, so as well as the standard time conditions and any of those that are recommended by the consultees, we think that there would be some site-specific conditions required. So there's talk about the ridge height there. Officers would consider a condition be required that the ridge height would be no greater than the adjacent Meadowbank building at 143 Strand Road, 143 Strand Road, and that's to protect residential amenity. We would consider that there would be a travel plan prior to occupation, a TransLink card to each household for a period of 5 years, a service management plan, a noise assessment to be submitted at reserved matters, a pylon risk assessment prior to commencement if pylon were to be carried out, and then there would be surface water and foul sewage conditions as well by NI Water. So that's just some of the suggested conditions that would be required.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah. Right, Maura. Members, we'll go to the vote now. I don't think see any other questions, and so if you could take us to the vote, please, Nina.
Thank you, Chair.
Can any members who have their mic on, please, online? Could they mute it, please? Thank you.
So members, this is item 3, and this is a proposal not to accept the officer's recommendation. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Support.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Against, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Jason Barr.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle, his apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Thank you. And just go back to Alderman Alan Breslin.
Against.
Thank you.
Okay, members, that's Councillor Jackson's proposal, carried, 7-5. Okay, thank you, members. Right, members, next item of business is application number 4, LA 11 2022-0868F. And that's Sarah to take that application. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Chair. Item 4 is LA 11 2022-0868F. This is for the erection of 50 dwellings. It's an amendment to part of a site previously approved under applications LA 11 2016-07530 and LA 11 2019-0007 RM. And associated site and road infrastructure and ancillary works, including the demolition of existing buildings on site. So the site is located on the Woodside Road, new buildings, and officer's recommendation is to approve. So this is the site location plan and aerial photographs of the site. The site is part of a wider site which was approved for a housing development. Phase 1 has already been constructed and occupied. The site benefits from both outline planning permission and reserved matters permission, and Phase 1 has been built, was subject to a separate application and an amendment to the reserved matters approval. The site is characterised by housing both north, south and east of the site at Stoney Path, Woodside Park, Rock Park and Victoria Road. So this is the photographs of Phase 1 dwellings which have been constructed and are occupied. This is a photograph showing existing boundary to dwellings in Stoney Path at the location of the proposed open space. The hedgerow there in the photograph has been retained, and there would also be a 4-metre depth buffer planting proposed along this boundary. And again, a photograph of the application site with Phase 1 dwellings constructed. So 13 representation objections were received, and in summary, the raised issues regarding the open space location, overlooking, loss of light, privacy, noise, antisocial behaviour, impact on bats, unauthorised works at the site, the planning process and impact on the value of properties. The objections were all received prior to the agents submitting the latest revised plans on the application, which amended the open space proposals for the site. Neighbours and objectors were all re-notified again on the 1st of June 2023 of these amendments, and no further objections have since been received in the application. So this is the proposed site layout. The area which is shaded grey is the Phase 1 development, which is constructed and occupied. So this application is for Phase 2 and is for a proposal for 50 dwelling units. The layout has retained the main design principles which were established in both the outline and the reserved matters permissions, and this includes the primary access and road network within the site, the pedestrian connections to Woodside Road and Victoria Road, and the dwellings have been designed to front onto the road network. The main area of open space for the site has been relocated from that approved in the reserved matters permission to the eastern part of the site. It provides an amenity area with a walking trail. And in previous plans submitted in the application, it was proposed that there would be a viewing platform within the open space, but this has now been removed from the proposals. At the boundary of the open space with the existing dwellings in Stony Path, a 4-metre depth buffer planting, 2 metres in height is proposed, along with a 1.8 paladin fence. The existing hedge is also being retained on this boundary, and thus will provide security and also privacy to existing dwellings on the boundary. A second area of open space is also provided for in the western part of the site. The layout and open space proposals, on balance of all the material considerations that were submitted in the application, are considered by officers to be acceptable, and the material considerations are set out in detail in members' reports. Careful consideration has also been given to separation distances and to house types, so to ensure that there will be no adverse negative impact on existing residential amenity. So this is just some of the proposed house types. This is house type F, which is F2, which is positioned to the open space, and house type K is a terrace of 2-storey dwellings. And some of the properties are split level dwellings located within the site, and that's just the elevations and floor plans and a visual image of the house type. And then we have single story bungalows, which is a house type J, and these are located adjacent to the boundary with a communal open space and also some of the dwellings at Stony Path. So there is a mix of dwelling types and a range and size of houses proposed within the site. The design is modern. Finishes include off-white render and facing brick. The single-storey dwellings are being provided at plots number 30, 60, 40 in the boundary with Stony Path, and this as was approved in the reserved matters as well. Careful consideration and care has been taken with regards to separation distances and all the levels within the site between the proposed and existing dwellings at Stony Path. So the house type design is considered acceptable in terms of its form, materials and detailing. So in terms of the policy assessment, and just to summarise, the proposal complies with the Derry Area Plan 2011. There was both a previous outline and reserved matters permission on the site. A quality residential environment can be achieved in accordance with PPS 7, and the housing layout and design is acceptable. There is adequate provision of usable open space in accordance with PPS 8. Access and parking are acceptable under PPS 3, and there's a provision of pedestrian connections provided to Woodside Road and Victoria Road. And DFI roads have now provided final conditions, and the PSD drawn, which was circulated in the members' pack, is the drawn that has been returned from DFI roads, which has been signed off with conditions. The drainage assessment submitted is acceptable under PPS 15. Natural heritage interests have been taken into account, particularly that of bats, and have been considered in the application, and Natural Environment Division has no objection. Archaeological features have also been considered in accordance with PPS 6. So the material considerations as presented from the agent throughout the application have been taken into account. The objection representations received have also been taken into account, as well as the advice from the consultees, and on balance, officers would recommend approval of the application subject to the conditions in the report and the final conditions provided by DFI roads. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Members, we have the agent online here on behalf of the applicant, and it's Una Somerville. Welcome to the committee, Una, and you wish you can go ahead now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am the agent for the application, and I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity of being here. I don't want to use the 5 minutes to really run through essentially what Sarah has covered, because obviously we're delighted the scheme is being approved or recommended for approval. I'm really here at the discretion of the committee to answer any queries or questions that any of you as councillors might have. So essentially, I'm here to answer anything at all that anyone has a query on.
Okay, Una, thank you for that advice there. Any members, any questions for Una Somerville? I'm in the chat. Alderman Hussey?
Just very briefly, the draft DFI roads conditions is the applicant content with all of those?
We have to just look at those. I'm not sure that we have seen full sight of them, but we did have very detailed discussions with DFI roads informally and formally. So I would assume we are happy, but I haven't had the chance to look at those in detail, Alderman Hussey, as yet.
Thank you, Una. Members, any other questions for Ms. Somerville, the agent? No more questions, then. Thank you.
Okay.
Members, any questions for the officer, for Sarah? Scan the room here. Okay, no questions for the officer. I'll pass it over to the members now. Members, any proposals? Councillor Barr?
Just to speed things along, Chair, I'm happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve, subject to the conditions.
Thank you. Councillor Barr is our seconder. Councillor McDade, thank you. Councillor McDade. Sorry, hold on. Councillor Jackson?
No, Chair, I know you've a proposal that's been seconded, but just to say, I personally I've got concerns with this, grave concerns with this. This committee has approved the previous scheme, which incorporated play provision within it, and it was taken into consideration creating places, the need for a degree of overlooking. They have a quality design scheme, and for us to move away, I'm just not convinced that of the merits of moving away from a previous approved scheme, which essentially, and it goes against the principles that's outlined in creating places. It goes against the consideration of properly located open space, which is protected by a degree of overlooking. This essentially is putting the open space and play provision to the corner of a development, out of sight. That's not good plan and design from my perspective. It's not something that I'm convinced and feel comfortable supporting. The previous scheme that was approved by this committee is something that I feel is a much better scheme, and I wouldn't be supporting moving away from the design that was originally approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I know we have our proposal seconded, but would you like that addressed by, would you like that addressed by the agent or by the officer? Or is it just you stating your view on it?
I suppose there's no other way to dress it up. There's an outline scheme that was approved, which had a play provision in the centre, or very, very centrally located within the scheme. This amended scheme is moving the play facilities into the corner of the scheme, out of the way. I suppose the fundamental principle of that is something that I don't feel comfortable with. If we're going to get down that route and set the precedent that we're going to approve developments where we can place play facilities sort of out of sight and put them on the corner of a development, it's a step in a direction where I'm just not entirely comfortable in, and this, for the application that's in front of us, it's not something that I could support.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Jackson. I'm sorry, just a second there, Ms. Somerville. I note your comments. I don't think we're setting a precedent, obviously, because every application turns in its own set of facts. This was a previous application, was brought before us, and I'm here because there's an application for variation. But on that basis, obviously, members have to address that on their own. Could I just ask one aspect before we go to the vote? Would be if there was objectors to this variation application, have the objections been dealt with in a manner that's satisfactory, and if the objections still stand, just for the committee's information? Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I suppose throughout the processing of the application, the agent submitted various amendments, have tried to, changed levels throughout the site. They have addressed concerns with regards to separation distances, privacy. They're providing the buffer plant in there between the open space and the existing properties there at 42 to 46 Stoney Path. So they've provided an amended house types to single-storey dwellings where previously there would have been a two-storey dwelling proposed kind of in a similar location. So I suppose from officers' opinion is that the issues raised in the objections have actually been addressed in the design and the layout as now proposed by the agent and the latest drawing submitted.
Chair, could I just add to that?
Sorry, Ms Somerville, no, we've only moved on to the element now where there is a proposition on the floor. I just wanted as chair some advice from the officer, but we're going to, but the proposal has been proposed and seconded, so I'm going to go to the vote now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, it was just to let you know I met the objectors personally.
That's okay.
Their concerns have been addressed.
Okay, Ms Somerville, thank you very much now.
Thank you.
I'll bring head of planning before we go to vote here.
Just it was outlined in the presentation about the last revision and how that had gone back out to the neighbour notes, and we didn't receive, is that correct, Sarah? No further objections after that, so it's just, I think that's in the report and on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, the head of planning there. There's a proposal that has been seconded to approve the officer's recommendation, so can we go to the vote now, please, Maura? Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Members, this is item 4.
Can members who are online, please mute your mics. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is item 4, and this is a proposal to accept officer's recommendation. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey. Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Thanks. Councillor John Boyle, as apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
Against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney, as apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
Against.
Thank you. 7-5, Chair.
Members, that proposal made by Councillor Barr has been approved. 7 votes to 5. Thank you. Okay, members. Next application is listed as number 10 on your papers there. It's the application LA11 2022 0957/F. And the recommendation is to approve. And the officer taking this is Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne.
It's actually Malachi. Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, it's on my list is Suzanne, but it's Malachi. Thank you, Malachi.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Item 10 is L11 2020 0957. It's a full planning application for residential development of 9 number detached dwellings and 2 number semi-detached dwellings and garages with associated car parking and landscaping. And this is an amendment to an extent plan approval previously approved under reference number A 2010-0521F. The site is located at land at 62A, 64 and 72 Limavady Road. The recommendation before you is to approve. The application site is outlined in red. It includes land located on the Limavady Road. The Limavady Road bounds the site on the southern section. It's unzoned land. It's located within the developments of Derry. The site is bounded by Brimhill Court and Brimhill Mews and Palmerston Park. And there's an existing property within the red line of the site known as 62A, which was a derelict detached property. which is in the northern portion of the site, just where my cursor showing here on the overhead photograph. And in the blue land, there is land previously developed under the original approval. There's a scheme known as Cherrydene, which is an apartment block at the southern end of the site. And there's just some photographs that are included in the report. Looking from the Limavady Road, this is the existing apartment block, which was part of the original approval. And it's just some internal photographs of the site, and there's more photographs contained within the case officer report. In terms of the policy context, the application is subject to RDS, the Dairy Area Plan, SPPS, PPS2, PPS3, PPS7, and its addendum in relation to safeguarding existing established residential areas, PPS 15, and planning guidance under creating places and living places. We've consulted a number of bodies relating to the application, including DFA Roads, NA Water, Rivers Agency, and Environmental Health. No objections have been raised, and the responses are summarised within the report. So there's no objections subject to conditions and informatives as set out. We've had a number of representations to the application. Again, these are outlined, considered, and considered in the report. Just summarise here before you some of the main issues raised, including loss of privacy, character, overlooking, parking, traffic, noise, effects on trees, changes to the original scheme, drainage, flooding, and a number of other issues as outlined there. So as alluded to, there's an extant approval on the site dating back to a 2010 application. This was implemented through the construction of the apartment block at the southern end of the site. So the previous approval was for 2 apartment blocks. So the one that's been built and one here shown in the cursor, and then a number of detached properties, a set of semi-detached properties. The amended scheme, whilst we have the area already developed for the apartment block, the scheme is more centred on detached and semi-detached properties. So what we have here is we have 2 semi-detached properties and 7 detached properties located along an adopted road, which is in white. So that will be adopted by DFA Road Service to that point under private streets order, and then a private shared surface lane at the northern end of the site here for the 4 detached properties in the northern section of the site. So there's 3 different house types here. House type A is a detached house type. House type B is one of the other detached house types, which is in the northern section of the site. The 2 properties in the northernmost part of the site are house type B. Then we have a house type C, it's a semi-detached house type. And the applicant has submitted some streetscape images. The site does slope from the Limavady Road down towards the northern section of the site. So this will give you a general idea of the streetscape as you move down through the development. So in terms of policy consideration, there was a number of factors officers took into account. As alluded to, the planning history is a material consideration in this application. The extent approval was granted for 16 apartments in 2 blocks over 2.5 stories. There was for 2 number semi-detached, 2.5 stories, 3 number detached, and 1 number detached, 2.5 story with landscaping and car parking. There's also approval granted on a separate application for retention of a townhouse attached to the existing apartments at the front of the site, which is in substitution of 2 apartments under that approval. So in terms of character, the application site is located within an established residential area. In terms of the wider character, the Limavady Road, and I suppose relevant to this site in terms of plan history, there's been many examples where we've had sort of large single plots which have been developed for smaller housing developments in terms of 8 to 9 dwellings in lieu of 1 dwelling. So we have that planning history here. It's a character that's established along Limavady Road, and this proposal is, I suppose, going along with that theme. In terms of amenity for each of the gardens, we've looked at the private amenity space of the proposed dwellings, which were all within the guidance set out within Creating Places. The 4 different house designs are fine in terms of design and policy terms. The parking, we've consulted roads. The proposals demonstrate adequate access arrangements, including visibility displays. And these have already been achieved due to the extant approval. In any case, in terms of flood risk, a drainage assessment has been submitted, has been accepted and viewed by DFA Rivers and officers. And so that issue has satisfied FLD 3 of PPS 15. So in terms of PPS 7 QD1, the report details all the main issues in terms of design, character, and one of the main issues raised by third parties relates to amenity. In terms of overlooking, and of particular concern is the properties to the northernmost tip of the site here, adjacent to properties at 5 Palmerston and 6 Broomhill here. So what we've done in the case officer report is we've set out the distances, in terms of separation distances. And if you'll notice here, the blue outline is the existing property that existed on the site. It's still there at the minute, it's derelict at the minute. So just to give you an idea of the context, officers are satisfied that there's adequate separation distances exist in terms of the angles and the orientations. Also, we don't feel that there will be any undue impact in terms of adverse impact on any of the adjacent properties. During the processing of the application, we had some concerns in relation to the boundary that existed between number 5 and the application site. In respect of that, we sought mitigation measures from the applicant who submitted an updated landscaping plan, which proposes heavy-duty planting along this boundary, which we feel will protect the amenity of both the property, the number 5, and also the property that's proposed. Also within the report, we've addressed the issue of tree preservation order on the site. There is a TPO on the site. The applicant has sought to remove 1 tree that is protected under tree preservation order. Again, it's located at the southern part of the site, up towards the Limavady Road. There's an ash tree which there's some issues in terms of disease. We've consulted with our tree experts within or accept the tree report submitted that this can be removed, and this will be noted within an updated TPO for the overall site. So we feel that this can be done without adverse impact on the overall TPO. And again, this is the landscaping plan. You can just see the area that we refer to earlier. We sought mitigation is up at number 5 Palmerston Park. Up at this location is the main area of concern. All our existing trees will be retained by condition, and again, any proposed landscaping will be subject to condition also. So having considered all the material considerations, including plan policy, objections, and consultation responses, officers recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Malachy, for your presentation. Next on the speaking list is Ms. Christina Gilchrist. She's here in her capacity as an objector. Could you take a seat up there, Ms. Gilchrist? Thank you very much, just beside Jill. That's great. And you have 5 minutes from once you speak, and you want to go ahead now, Ms. Gilchrist, and just address the committee. Once you stop, there will be then questions from members if they wish to present any to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish to make representations on behalf of myself and my husband. We live at number 6 Broomhill Court. We have lived there since 1995. In fact, we were the first house on the Broomhill Court site. In addition, Mr. and Mrs. Fahala of 5 Palmerston Park have asked me to bring their concerns to the meeting as they are in London on family business and cannot attend. And Mr. and Mrs. Hassan, who are also involved, are not at home and can't attend. We have concerns in relation to the overlooking of our property at 6 Brimhill Court from Site 9. This has been dismissed by the developer, who has stated that there is a mature intermediate boundary and that he was unable to identify our property when viewed from the application site. I would suggest that this is due to the density of vegetation currently on the Cherrydean site. We have a low hedge at the upper end of our garden, leading to 3 mature trees, which were in situ when we purchased the site. The mature trees provide a home for indigenous species, as well as birds. And in fact, at some stages, we have seen both grey and red squirrels in the trees. The lower branches bear me a foot, we have a low hedge at the upper end of our garden, and then about a 4-foot high boundary adjoining with Broomhill Court number 8. I note that the developer intends to reduce a continuous hedge and intermittent indigenous hedge trees. There is no guarantee that the new hedge will take, and therefore, in our opinion, does not provide an acceptable solution. I wish to raise our concerns re the proposed additional properties in the southwest corner of the site, an area which was defined in previous planning decisions, including appeal decisions, as, and I quote, avoid building where overlooking would be greatest. In addition, many of the proposed houses are at a higher elevation from the neighbouring homes in Broomhill Court and Palmerston Park, therefore adversely affecting natural light. The site in question has a relatively steep incline with potential risk of flash floods. I understand from Mr. Fahala that there has been a major problem recently with leakage of sewage into the rear gardens in Palmerston Park, including his own, and that Northern Ireland Water had to be called to assist in sorting out these difficulties. Consideration also needs to be given on the pressure on public services, as Limavady Road is well known for heavy congestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilchrist. Does any of the members have any questions for Mrs. Gilchrist? Alderman Hussey?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gilchrist. Did you say number 6?
Yes.
Right. So you also have a concern reference the separation distance, is that correct? Yeah, I noted that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Any other members have any questions? Nobody online? No? Okay. Okay, Mrs. Gilchrist, thank you very much for your presentation. If you want to just take a seat there beside your husband again. Very grateful. Thank you. Members, next speaker is the agent on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Kevin Curtin. Kevin, are you online?
I hope so.
That's good, Kevin. Well, you have 5 minutes now, so thank you very much. Go ahead.
Can you see me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Chairman, members, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. My name is Kevin Carton, Kevin Carton Architects, agent for the application, and with me are Chris Bell, the project architect, and Ronan Sheehy, civil engineer, who will be available to answer any questions members may have in relation to drainage and roads matters. We endorse your officer's recommendation to approve the application and would note that considerable time has been spent liaising with your officers, and the amendments have been made to the proposal to ensure that it is fully compliant with all the relevant statutory bodies and planning policy. In the first instance, we confirmed the application site does benefit from an existing planning approval secured by the erection of an apartment block and townhouse on the south part of the application on the Limavady Road frontage, including a new full standard access onto Limavady Road. The site owners have constructed the first phase of the development with a landmark apartment building, which we believe makes an attractive addition to the streetscape of Limavady Road. The residual application site benefits from an existing approval for 14 dwellings consisting of 8 apartments, 2 semi-detached and 4 detached dwellings. The application proposes a more appropriate mix of 11 dwellings, consisting of 9 detached and 2 semi-detached dwellings, given an overall reduction of 3 dwellings on the application site. The developer is very keen to complete the development as soon as planning approval is granted. The protected TBO trees will be retained apart from one to be removed to facilitate the communal parking, which was approved under the previous planning application. Boundary trees and hedges will be retained and protected during construction. The developer will continue to monitor the existing boundary trees by engaging a tree surgeon to carry out work, if required, to reduce the impact of trees on the amenity of existing neighbours. Members will be aware that there have been a number of objections which the design team have used their best endeavours to address. The risk of overlooking has been carefully considered in the layout, particularly in the lower section of the site. There is a heavily wooded existing boundary to the northwest behind the application site, between the application site and number 2 to 8 Brimhill Court, which provides excellent screening and privacy. The dwelling immediately adjacent to number 5 Palmerston Park on site 8 sits with its flank to the boundary with no overlooking windows. The boundary will be enhanced with heavy standard trees to further enhance privacy. The number of proposed dwellings on the site has been reduced, so there will be less pressure on the local drainage system, which has been signed off by NI Water. There was a recent very unfortunate foul spillage across the garden of number 5 Palmerston Park due to an issue with the existing NI Water network. This was not the developer's responsibility, and the problem was sorted out directly by NI Water, facilitated by the developer. To conclude, we would highlight that the statutory consultees have been returned, accepting the proposals subject to conditions, and we endorse your officer's recommendation to approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin, for your presentation here. Members, any questions for Mr. Curtin? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your representation. I've already clarified the situation of separation distance with number 6, the Mr. Gilchrist, who has spoken. I've looked at that and note that it's 16.9 metres. Is there a requirement for 22-metre separation?
Kevin, you want to go ahead and answer that question? Thank you.
Normally, in a back-to-back situation, you would aim for 22, but this is flank and rear, so we would normally look for 10-metre rear gardens and 3 metres onto the flank. So rear to flank, 13 metres would be the norm, the normal sort of standards we would work to, which in this case is fully compliant.
Any follow-up, Alderman Hussey?
No. I just note that there's an admission that it isn't the 22, which would have been normal.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. Thank you, Kevin. Just a second, I just check. Councillor Jackson, thank you.
Cormac, Chair, and just picking up from the comments that were made by Mrs. Gilchrist, what exactly? Because what steps are you planning to take to avoid overlooking and screening? Because I know there was concerns around hedges and the vegetation between the property. Can you elaborate more in relation to the concerns that have been, and very valid concerns that have been raised by Mrs. Gilchrist?
Yes, well, if we look at Mrs. Gilchrist's site, first of all, the hedging that is to the rear of the property and within our application site is very mature, and we have no intention of removing that. It will remain intact and wildlife will be protected. So we don't have any concerns about that particular part of the site. And on the other side, with number 5 Palmerston Park, we proposed a considerable tree planting of heavy standard trees to help that boundary. Again, there's a small bathroom or ensuite on the upper floor of that house on site 8, so there will be no overlooking at all from that particular site into the garden number 5.
Thank you, Kevin. I just have a supplementary from Councillor Jackson. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I accept the extensive planting in the boundary of number 5. But in your accept, and I suppose just on that final point around that you accept that there will be no overlooking the number 5. Do you accept that there will be a degree of overlooking the Mrs. Gilchrist property?
No. No, if you go onto the site, I mean, the site is a bit overgrown and we're keen to get moving. But when we first visit the site, there's a very strong boundary there, which again, we're not touching. So, and you can't even see the houses through from our site into Broomhill Court. So we think there's a very, very good visual separation there.
You happy enough, Councillor Jackson? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions for Mr. Curtin? Kevin, thank you. We have no more questions from any of the members here, Emily. So
thank you.
We'll move on now to questions for the officer. Thank you. Members, if anybody any questions for the officer? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just to follow up on the same questions as already been asked. Has the officer any comment to make on the 22 metre separation vis-a-vis the 16.95 which is proposed? There's also mention of the planting, existing planting, but I note that there seems to be a fair degree of removal of trees that are circled in red, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of separations distance, guidance is set out in creating places. In terms of sort of urban locations like this, there's a greater degree of flexibility applied in terms of separation distance between existing properties and proposed properties. Again, we would sort of take the view as well. This is not back to back. It's a side elevation or flank elevation to a rear existing elevation. And we believe that the 16.95 would be adequate in terms of the existing context of this location and similar contexts in the streets surrounding here in terms of separation distances. And it would be similar to separation distances in previous approvals. In terms of the landscaping plan, there's works proposed. Those red circles are areas within the drop lines of trees where no works will be proposed. No, is my understanding of that. So there's no tree removals down at the lower part of the site adjacent to Broomhill Court or Palmerston. And thank you.
Through you, Chair, it's the tree removal as opposed towards the entrance.
Yes, the red tree is the tree that's been removed is the TPO tree. So that's been totally removed as part of the proposal, yeah.
Any other members, any questions, the officer? Yes, Councillor.
Just very briefly, in relation to the TPO tree that was removed, am I right in hearing that was that affected by ash dieback, or is that TPO still valid if the tree is diseased in any way?
Yes, the overall TPO is still valid. TPOs are normally a grouping of trees, so this was an individual tree. So understanding that this, if it's dying or disease, it's a valid reason for removing a tree under a TPO. So we've referred it to our TPO team during the consideration of this application. So what they'll do now is update the TPO register to take that into account.
So just following up, have we got confirmation from anybody within council that the tree is in fact diseased?
Yes, well, they've accepted the findings of the report put on by the horticulturist. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any other questions before we move on to the officer? No? No? Okay, members, well, this application has been canvassed extensively. Does any pass over to you now? There is a recommendation for approval on the list, so happy to hear from members now. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Chair, and notwithstanding the objections that we've heard today from Ms Gilchrist and the genuine concerns that have been raised by local residents, from our perspective, we're sitting here with an application in front of us. We're assessing it against policy, and I can't see any policy reasons that would substantiate a refusal on this application, and on that basis, I'm content to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Chair, I'm happy enough to second the proposal there, but I would just say that I would encourage the developer and his tree surgeon that he mentioned to work as best they can with Mrs Gilchrist and the other concerned parties around the site. Oh my God.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard, and hopefully your comments will be duly noted and the applicant's agent can relay them to the developer. Well, members, we have a proposal and a seconder now, so I'll pass over to Maura to take the vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, if anybody's online, could they please mute their iPads or computers? Thank you.
Members, this is item 10, and this is a proposal to accept officer's recommendation to approve. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Kelsey.
Chair, I'm still not, I'm uneasy about this and can't support the recommendation.
Abstain.
Against.
Against. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For, Maura.
Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Okay. Councillor John Boyle's apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Okay. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
For.
Okay. Councillor Conor Heaney's apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For.
Okay. Councillor Catherine McDade.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Okay. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Okay. Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Okay.
Members, that's 10 for, 1 against, and 1 abstention. That proposal's been carried. Thank you, members. I'd like to say thank you to Mrs Gilchrist for coming to the committee today. Thank you for coming and presenting. And you're welcome. Thank you to Mr Curtin, to the agent. Thank you. Members, next application is number 5 on your list. My understanding is Sarah is taking this application. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, item 5 is LA 11 2022 1122 S54. So this is a section 54 application which seeks to vary the wording of condition 42 of planning approval LA 11 2020 0244F. The site is the north of Festina Retail Park and south of Templemore Road, and officer's recommendation is to approve. So this is the site location plan and aerial photograph of the site. This application has been presented to members for decision as it relates to a condition associated with a major housing development which was previously granted permission by Planning Committee. So the site is in lands north of Fustina Retail Park and south of Templemore Road. One representation objection was received in the application, which members have in front of them as a late item. The objector is concerned about noise and people hanging around the lane. Sorry. This application is to vary a planning condition which relates to drainage infrastructure associated with the full planning permission for the 98 dwelling units, and noise issues were considered in detail and part of that full planning approval. So planning permission was granted on the site under LA 11-2020-0244F for 98 units on the 26th of April 2022. And the layout that was approved was designed to take account of the route for the proposed A2 road upgrade. The approved layout plan is on the left-hand side of your screen, and this proposed an area of open space in the centre of the site until such times as the land required for the A2 road scheme came forward. So the layout plan on the right-hand side is just for information purposes only, and thus showed the potential proposed A2 road scheme through the site. Now, condition 42 of the 2020 approval stated that there should be no drainage infrastructure, including sewers, located in the land required for the construction of the A2 Buncrana Road scheme. So that's the land that's shown in red there on the aerial photo or in the plan on your screen. So this proposal is to vary that condition, and the variation of condition would allow then drainage infrastructure, but it would be worded so that there be no drainage infrastructure, including sewers, until the detailed design, including the foundation design, has been submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority. So the reason for the variation of the condition is that it conflicts with the drainage solution that is proposed for the site. The rewording of the condition would not preclude any drainage infrastructure in the land take for the A2 scheme, but it would be agreed through assessment of the detailed design. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads consider that the variation of the condition is acceptable, and the wording has also been agreed with the agent for the application, and therefore we recommend approval.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, no, just maybe to speed things up, because I think A2 Buncrana Road is important to us all. It's a piece of strategic infrastructure that's long overdue, and we don't want to see any impediment to the construction and the delivery of this much needed project. And there was a nervousness around relaxing any conditions in relation to that, but if we have got the agreement and assurance from DFI that the relaxation or this proposed rewording isn't going to be an impediment to the delivery of the A2 scheme, then on that basis I'm content to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any seconders for that? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Take a vote there, please. No more questions. More questions? No?
Thank you, Chair. Remember, this is item 5, and this is a recommendation to approve. This is a proposal to approve.
Members, please turn on your mics again. Thank you.
This is a proposal to accept officer's recommendation to approve. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Okay. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Thank you. Councillor Jason Barr. Thanks. Councillor John Boyle, his apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Councillor Paul Gallagher. Okay. Councillor Conor Heaney, his apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For more.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For.
Thanks. Councillor Catherine McDade.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For more.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Okay, and Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Thank you. It's unanimous, Chair. Oh, sorry. Back to Alan Breslin.
4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Members, thank you. That was unanimous. On to the next item now, which is item number 6, and that is LA 11 2022 0753, and that is Suzanne who's taken that and its recommendation for a refusal. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks, Chair. Just so members, this is item 6, L11 2022-0753. It's a proposed application for a site for a 2-storey dwelling and garage on a farm on land 65 metres east of 376B Victoria Road, Cloughacore, Ballymagorry, and the recommendation is to refuse. On your screen, you'll see the site location map submitted and the ortho source with the red line of the site outlined. And here's just a couple of photos just taken from the actual hedge. But the site just sits west of the main A5. This is just taken from the hedge boundary between the site and the A5. So in terms of the policy context set out in your reports, the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 21, 2, 3 and 15, and then the supplementary planning guidance. And in terms of the consultation responses, no major issues have been raised other than DFI roads issues, which we'll come to. And environmental health have just raised some advice in terms of noise and odours. There have been no third-party representations received to date either on the application. You will be aware, members, that there's lead information received on this, and for this application, the lead information relevant is really the note of the meeting from Mr. O'Neill yesterday evening that he sent his update of a meeting that they had with DFI Roads, so we'll come to that as well. So in terms of looking at the policy for a dwelling on a farm, main policy consideration, the material consideration is PPS 21. In this case, this site does meet the active and established test. We consider the site is clustered and visually linked with a group of buildings on the farm. And we also consider that it does meet policies CTY 13 and 14 of PPS 21. In terms of the residential amenity, environmental health are advising that there could be some noise in terms of the adjacent business, the car sales and workshop area immediately to the west of the site, and they are actually advising a noise report to be submitted in the event that this would go forward as an approval. Now, the noise assessment hasn't been provided on that by the agent to date. We don't consider that there's any major natural heritage issues. We've considered those in terms of PPS 2. So I suppose the fundamental policy consideration in relation to this is really PPS 3, access, movement and parking. And there's 2 policies in particular, AMP3, which is for accesses onto protected routes, and also AMP4, which is for the protection of new transport schemes. So DFI Roads are actually on the call today. Johnny Ralston, the senior roads engineer, is available to take any questions. When we consulted DFI Roads on this, they did have concerns that a dwelling at this location would be contrary to the AMP3, and we've considered that, and given the adjacent use in terms of the workshop and the car sales, the officer view is, look, it's likely that the access intensification would be below the threshold of 5%. So as an officer team, we have taken roads advice on board in terms of AMP3. We feel that on balance, it could be met. The main issue that we have is in relation to AMP4, which is the protection of the land required for the A5. So I'm going to try and just maybe, I don't know if you can see that clear on your screens. I'm going to try and just put it into a slideshow. The site is included within the land take Okay, we're all aware, obviously, at the moment that there has been the public inquiry. The land take is actually the yellow. There's a yellow line, and my cursor's just following it here. Okay, obviously, there's been a public inquiry, which I think is going to be expected to be published by the end of the year. If that did advise that the road was to go ahead, then there will be a notice of an intention to vest sent out to all landowners, okay? And that may or may not include everything within the yellow area, but at the minute, AMP4 protects everything within the yellow line, the proposed route, okay? So as you can see there, the site is right in the middle of the A5. Okay, it's a flagship project for the West, and it's a material consideration which must be afforded weight. PPS 3 was published way back in 2005 and this is a long established policy in AMP4, and it does advise that every effort will be made to minimise the effects of blight where this is unavoidable, provision exists to compensate landowners. Compensation is not a material consideration to the planning process. There is a separate process for that. Landowners can submit certificates of alternative development, which would deal with that issue separately. So as we see it now, this does clearly sit within the land take. The meeting, I have had a meeting myself and the officer team back at the start of the year with the applicant agent, Gary Middleton, MLA. They were then going to go to DFI Roads, which they did, and Mr. O'Neill has given you a summary of that meeting, which was held the 21st of June. We also have comments from DFI Roads that they issued to the applicants yesterday evening on the issue. And basically, officers' view is that we cannot set aside the policy in this case. The policy is very, very clear, and the land's required to be protected. The process is required to be protected. So on that basis, officers are recommending refusal of this application for a dwelling on a farm.
Thank you, Suzanne. We have no agent here on behalf of the applicant or the applicant itself. So, do members any questions for Suzanne? Or in the alternative, members have any questions for Mr. Rolston from DFI? Alderman Hussey, who's your
Just a brief
question
one.
for?
I'm not sure if DFI will know this answer. Is that close to a property that's already been vested with regard to the potential A5 route?
Johnny, if you're online, welcome to the committee. And Alderman Hussey has asked a question there. I was wondering, could you be in a position to answer it for him? Thank you.
Yes, I'm on the line. Just check it. You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alderman Hussey, for the question. Yes, that is adjacent to the property that has been vested by the department already, or has been acquired by agreement.
Thank you, Johnny. Has members any further questions for either the officer or for DFI?
Chair, could I come in, Chair?
Yes, Councillor Gallagher. Thank you.
All right. And congratulations on your appointment to the chair.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good year. Hi, just the officers. If for some reason the A5 didn't go ahead, are they saying there would be no issues with this application being approved?
To the officer. Thank you.
What we're saying is yes, there and the officer view it meets the tests of CTY 10. We have also said that intensification at the moment on the site would be less than 5% in our view. Now, what that might be down the line, Councillor Gallagher, I couldn't say, but at the minute, we would be recommending approval other than for the A5 project.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Gallagher, or do you have any
Yeah,
supplementaries?
just on that, I'm just wondering though, because like the A5 has been on the agenda for quite a while, and this application coming in, was there not any sort of discussion where the applicant to say, could they hold this back for where it sits, you know, and like we see this map, the road's going straight through it. So you would think, you know, why would you be pursuing an application where there's going to be a road going straight through the? So I wonder was there any discussion there? No, there's nobody came on, but.
Okay, Suzanne, do you want to, if you can help us, Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, Councillor Gallagher. So just so you know, the application came in, it was June last year. We have made the agents aware that it's contrary to AMP4 because of it's prejudicial to the route. I also sat at a meeting at the start of the year with all the parties and said, look, this really in our view will be a refusal, and if you had any other sites on your land that were not affected by the A5, if you wanted to let us know. Nothing has been forthcoming. They went off obviously to speak with DFI Roads. So on the basis of where we are at the moment, you know, we've taken this as far as we can go in terms of the officer team.
Councillor Gallagher, are you?
Yeah, no,
I'm
just like, I'm conscious of the fact it would be very difficult for us as a committee to go against this recommendation here as it stands. So I was just wondering, was there an alternative? That's sort of my question.
No alternative sites or anything has been put into us, and you know, until such times as that would happen, it would be really premature of me to advise you that, you know, we could get a site somewhere else. It's really up to the applicant and the agent to come to us with other sites, or submit other applications which are not in the line of the A5 and that they feel would meet the other policy tests of PPS 21 and PPS 3.
Okay, Suzanne, thank you for your answer. Councillor Gallagher, have you any further questions, or are you happy enough?
Well, I suppose I could put the same question to Roads. Do you know, was there any engagement with the applicant on their side?
Johnny, I think Councillor Gallagher has put that question to you now that he put to Suzanne. Could you help him out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Gallagher, for the question. Yeah, DFI Roads met with the agent and the team on 21st of June and discussed the issues with them, and it pointed out our concerns and the prejudicial impact this would have on delivery of the A5 WTC scheme. They did suggest that they may look at alternative sites, but as the case officer says, no other proposals have come forward. Our position hasn't changed from our initial consultation response when this application first came in, you know, so the agent is well aware of the concerns from DFI Roads, and, you know, they have the publicly available, the A5 WTC line on a map, you know, so it's very clear to see this as a major encroachment. It's not a small encroachment on the A5 vesting line. It's a major land take issue.
Thank you, Johnny, for that. Councillor Gallagher, are you happy enough with that reply?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher, thank you. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Listen, after listening to all the contributors, I want to make a proposal that we support the council officer's decision.
Sorry, just to cut across you, Councillor Leonard, I think there's other members who want to come in there just before you make your proposal, so I'll bear you in mind. Anyway, thank you. Alderman Huss, are you looking in there?
Yeah, just very briefly. Are we being told that this application definitely is on the proposed route of the A5 and impact on it? It's definitely on it.
Is that?
Yes, Councillor Hussey, just if you look up there on the screen, you should see the red line, and it's right in the middle. As Johnny says, it's a major encroachment it's right in the middle of the road.
I'm asking that on the basis of the actual proposed building, the site area definitely does, but there's an area of that that doesn't.
The site and the access are all within, no, there's a small part, but it's still within at the minute, the land take area, okay? So it's all within the land take area at the minute, the site and the access.
Happy enough, Alderman Hussey? Okay. Councillor Keith Kerrigan online. Do you want to come on there, Keith?
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me on. Just it was two wee points, and I suppose one was you have touched on them already, but one part's in regards to our DFI personnel there, in regards to that the yellow line that is the land take there. I take it is that kind of envisaged that will really be your landscaping down, you know, in these major road networks that you see, whereby you have sort of a bit of landscaping down, or is it envisaged that some of that may well not be used? Or that's one part of the question. The other question is there too, Suzanne, in regards to this. You know, you've seen the 22 farm maps. Now, we don't have them in our pack as far as I see, but you've seen them according to the officer's report there. You know the size of the farm. It doesn't seem to, maybe I've missed it there. It doesn't tell me what acres or hectares or anything's in it. You know, I don't know if it's well, 12 acres was always the minimum. I know they're on about increasing that. If it's 12, it's 120. You know, so we don't know how big it is. But would there not have been the opportunity for officers to have had a wee word and go, well, hey, there's your farm map. You know, you haven't sold off a site within the last 10 years. There might be an alternative site to try and push it, you know, or is there even that opportunity to go back to the applicant and say, hey, you know, that site's not really suitable due to A5, but we could maybe work on a different site somewhere on the farm. I know it's the onus is on the applicant and the agent to pick a site, but you know, you could give them that wee bit of guidance. So just clarification on those 2 points. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Alderman Kerrigan, I think the first lump of your question was it for Johnny and DFA, and then the second part was for Suzanne. Am I correct?
Yes, Chair. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Johnny, I wonder if you could maybe address Alderman Kerrigan's first part of this question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Kerrigan, for your question. Yeah, that land, some of it will be required for working room, basically to construct the A5, and yes, it may be used for planting and landscaping, the likes then as well. But at an initial point, it's used for space to construct the actual scheme.
Thank you, Johnny. Suzanne, do you want to come on the second one? Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Kerrigan, as I said earlier, we have met with the applicant and the agent, and we've advised them of the issue. We haven't gone out to identify sites for them because that is not the process that we operate within council, but we will more than happy look at any site that they would put into us. But I understand that that is not what they were proposing, okay? If anything comes from them between now and whatever, we will of course advise as best we can. And there, my understanding is there's a substantial portion of land within the holding. It does straddle a road, and it's just complicated given the road scheme where it's proposed at the minute for them.
Thank you, Suzanne. Alderman Kerrigan, you happy enough for content with those replies?
Content with the replies at present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Any more members who wish
Chair,
to?
I wonder could I come back in just on the back of
that? Okay, Councillor Gallagher.
I know some more councillor was about to make a proposal, but just on the balance of fairness, Chair, would there be a possibility of maybe the fairness and giving the applicant maybe an opportunity to come up with somewhere else rather than just refusing it, and we would have all the reasons in the world for refusing this as it currently sits, but maybe proposing a deferral, Chair, just on the balance of fairness, you know.
Chair, if that's a proposal, I would be content to second it.
Just a second, members. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you want to come on there?
Yeah, no, just a question in relation to that proposal, because it's my understanding that these applications that come before us, we take a decision on what's in front of us, not what might be in front of us or what we would like to see in front of us. And I suppose just in terms of a question, if there was an alternative site identified, would that require a new application anyway? That question, I wouldn't mind an answer on the record.
Suzanne, do you want to take that or Maura?
Just in terms of Councillor Jackson, this has come up before in committee. We do have to just deal with the application before us, and any sort of other proposal would be through a separate planning application. But Suzanne, you want to come in the detail from?
Yeah, it will, you know, anything outside that red line will require a new plan application, and we know that application as it stands at the minute is contrary to the protected routes.
Subsequent to that, would it
Okay, Alderman.
allow the opportunity for withdrawal of the application so as not to compromise any future decision?
Alderman Hussey, I would take that application, but there's nobody here, the applicant nor the agent are here to make that withdrawal application. But from what I've heard, I'm satisfied that the proposal should go ahead in relation to the earlier proposal from Councillor Leonard, from the advices given by the head of planning and by Suzanne. I'm satisfied that it really will be a moot point. So in relation to going forward here, I'm going back to Councillor Leonard if he wants to put that proposal that he did previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies to yourself and to fellow aldermen and councillors for
No need to make a
for jumping on a bit there. Yeah, my proposal is that we go with the decision of council officers. And I'm definitely not against building houses in rural areas, definitely not. But I think it's the A5 is so important for this end of the world, and in terms of road safety, in terms of economic development, and I'm sure I definitely speak for the majority of us that this is important. We shouldn't be doing anything that may jeopardise that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. That's a proposal. Do we have a seconder for your? Thank you, Councillor Fleming, for seconding Councillor Leonard's proposal. Maura, could we take the vote here, please? Thank you.
Okay. Members, this is item 6, and it's a proposal to accept officer's recommendation. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Okay. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Standing on the basis I believe there was an alternative, Chair.
Abstention. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
For, Maura.
Okay. Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Okay. Councillor John Boyle's apologies. Councillor John Fleming.
For.
Okay. Councillor Paul Gallagher. Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney's apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For, Maura.
Okay. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For, Maura.
Okay. Councillor Catherine McDade.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Okay. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Okay.
Members, that's 11 for and 1 abstention. Members, it's going on 4 o'clock, so I'm proposing a short comfort break. I know I can do with one anyway, but 10 minutes, members. Thank you. Now, item number 7, LA 11 2022 0615F. Recommendations to refuse, and Suzanne's taking this one. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks, Chair. Just trying to. Okay, members. So we have an application LA 11 2022 0615F. It's the proposed retention of change of use from agricultural land to commercial van and motor sales area, yard, and retention of 2 office units. And the site is 20 metres northeast of 376B Victoria Road, Clough, Ballymagorry, and the recommendation is to refuse. Just a preliminary matter, members will see lead information that has also been provided on this in the form of a note of a meeting, and also a new P1 application form and a new site location map, and I will cover those later on in the presentation. So the site you can see in front of you on your screens, it's an area of hard standing that has been created with a number of buildings for motor sales area, and it's accessed by an existing laneway just off the A5, just very close to our previous application. Here's just some photos of the site taken from the first one. There's actually taken from the laneway. It's very hard to see this site due to that. There's a really strong, I think, beech hedge along the A5. So you can see there the area of hardstand. You can see the sheds down below. That is an existing car sales workshop business that was previously approved back by the DOE, because the use had been established for a period of time within the countryside. It didn't meet policy, but they approved it on that basis. So these photos were taken some time ago. I have the understanding that some of the cars have now been taken off the site. But just for your knowledge of the area and the hard stand, that's what it is. The policy context is listed in your reports and on your screens. And in terms of consultation responses, we have no issues from NI Water. Environmental Health have provided advice regarding the flood lighting, construction noise, and then we have the DFI Roads comments in relation to PPS 3, and we have no third-party representations received to date. So this is a more detailed site plan, and the office building plans are located on the right of your screen. So in terms of the policy consideration, so motor sales members is actually sui generis, and what we mean by that is it's actually not a classified use in the use classes order, but previous PA decisions in case law on motor sales have considered that it is a retail activity. Okay, therefore, Planning Policy Statement 4, which is for business and industry, is not applicable for retail uses. That's contained within the preamble of PPS 4. This obviously takes us on to the SPPS, the Strategic Planning Policy Statement, which directs all retail into town centres. And if not town centres, then there's a sequential test requirement for sites outside of centres. Our other material consideration is PPS 21, CTY 1, and that's advises that if there's no, there has to be an overriding need to demonstrate why a proposal could not be located within a settlement limit if it's not an acceptable use listed within PPS 21. In terms of the integration and build-up issues, officers consider it does meet CTY 13 and 14 of PPS 21, as you'll see in your reports. So in terms of the PPS 3 issue again, so this is obviously different in terms of the use and the intensification. Again, we have AMP3, which is for accesses onto protected routes, and then we've AMP4, which is the protection of new transport schemes. In terms of the PPS 3 issue for the access onto the protected route, from the floor area, or from the area of the yard, there's a very high likelihood that this will actually cause an intensification of use of the existing access. So DFI Roads have recommended refusal on AMP3, and officers would support that reason for refusal on that basis. In terms of AMP4, then again, you will be familiar with the map. You can see on your screens the site is just located within the yellow land take area again. The existing yard and shed is just outside it. Part of it's just outside it, but this is a separate red line located within the land take. So the same issues again in terms of the policy. It clearly conflicts with the land take required for the A5 West Tyrone Corridor or Western Tyrone Corridor Transport Scheme, whatever it's called, sorry, and it's contrary to AMP4. In terms of late information, so the agent actually came in this morning with a revised P1 form, which is in your packs, and an amended description actually describing the development as an extension to the existing development and slightly reducing the red line. That's all that has been submitted. In considering that late information, you will hopefully be aware that officers have already considered this as an extension to the existing business, and have actually said, look, even if we were considering it as an extension to an existing business, it still has to comply with the SPPS, and they would have to do that sequential test to determine why there's no other sites located in or around a settlement more appropriate for this use on the site. So we've considered that issue that the P1 form is including today. In terms of the red line, the reduced line is still within the land take area. We have just received a location map. We've received no other amended plans. So there's not a complete package there for us to take forward and consider. In any case, it is not considered that it would raise any new issues. It's still within the area of the land take. And in terms of the notes of the meeting, obviously the meeting was held with DFI Roads on the 21st of June. The agent has summarised that. I've also advised that I met with the agent, the applicant and the local MLA back at the start of the year when we discussed all these applications, all three applications, and the action after that meeting was they were going to go to speak to DFI Roads. So obviously we have the findings out of that. And also, you know, in terms of the information that the agent has received yesterday from the DFI Road Strategic Routes team, they're saying is, look, you know, they have confirmed that the agent wished on record that this case has been reviewed by line management, which they have, and the stance taken by department officials at the meeting is fully supported that it is absolutely critical to the A5 scheme that all lands within the notice of intention to make a vesting order boundaries, which is that yellow area, are protected. So we have included the reasons for refusal at the end of the report from C2I1, SPPS, and then obviously AMP4 and AMP3 in this case in terms of intensification. So I'm happy members to take any queries. Thanks.
Thank you, Suzanne. Does members have any queries for Suzanne? Members, I know Johnny Rolston's still here as well for your benefit. So if you've no questions for Suzanne, or would you have any for Johnny? Okay, members, no questions for either Suzanne or Johnny. I'll pass it over to yourselves. You have a recommendation there. It's for refusal. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Chair, similar to the previous application and the importance of the 5 route and the importance of protecting the land associated with the A5, And I'm conscious that there are other refusal reasons here, but that is the one that's jumping out at me. And on that basis, I'm more than content to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Do you have a seconder for your proposal? Councillor Leonard, thank you for seconding that.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is item 7 and it's a proposal to accept officer's recommendation to refuse. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Okay. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Okay. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Okay. Councillor Jason Barr. Okay. Councillor John Boyle's apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Okay. Councillor Paul Gallagher. Okay. Councillor Conor Heaney's apologies and Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For, Maura.
Okay. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For.
Thanks. Councillor Catherine McDade.
For.
Okay. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Okay. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Okay. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Thank you. It's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Maura. That's unanimous again. And thank you, members. Next application is number 8 in your list. LA 11 2020 0602A, recommendation for refusal, and that's Suzanne again. Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay, Chair, and members, this is an application for the retention of a sign at the access, 185 metres northeast of 376B Victoria Road, Clough, and it's LA 11 2022 0602A, and the recommendation is to refuse. So the totem sign is located within the, just at the end of the access onto the Victoria Road, the A5. And this was the picture of the sign whenever the application came in. I'm aware now that the top part of the sign, but that says Emerald Car Sales is now taken out of it. The sign just still has the structure, the same height, but it's just the actual signage in relation to the bottom is still existing on the ground. The agent hasn't updated any of the plans or anything, so we just stick with what's been submitted. Policy context. In this case, we're looking at the regional policy, the area plan, and also PPS 3 and PPS 17, which is the control of outdoor advertisements. Only one consultee, DFI Roads, recommending that there's issues obviously with the being in the line of the A5, AMP4, and then also recommending issues in terms of intensification. As an officer team, we sort of didn't agree on balance with the second reason for refusal, and that will be in your report. Again, just in terms of the few elevations of the signs. Signs not illuminated or not proposed to be illuminated, and this obviously is a retrospective application for an advertising consent. On balance, there's no impact on public amenity or safety, and DFI Roads had no issue with the safety or the position of it either. So our main policy issue as an officer team we're taking forward is just AMP4 again, that it's within the land take area, and we must afford weight to that proposal and recommend refusal on that basis. And that's the reason for refusal, members, in front of you and also located in your reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, for your presentation. Members, any questions for Suzanne in relation to the application?
Chair, could I come in?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Gallagher. Thank you.
Just on the last remark there around safety issues, and this is an existing sign. Would there be any safety issues if the sign was removed? Possibly, you know, that what I'm thinking about is like cars missing a turn and braking and turning and twisting. You know, if people overshoot the business.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Suzanne, have you any replies? Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure on what, you know, that wouldn't be, in some cases, yes, there's a reason for putting a sign up, and that's why the department would put up those directional signs to businesses that are on major routes. Johnny, maybe you want to come in on that?
Johnny, I'm not sure if you heard Councillor Gallagher's question there, but hopefully you have. Look, could you probably try and assist us anyway, if that's possible? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I suppose, thank you, Councillor, for your question. I suppose I would point out that the business operated for a considerable length of time with no signage, and this sign has only been erected reasonably recently, you know, so it did operate with no signage. We're not aware of any accidents. Well, I'm not aware of any accidents at the entrance to suggest that there would be, you know, a road safety concern.
Thank you, Johnny. Councillor Gallagher, any for
No, I'm just saying it's probably very subjective, such,
Yeah.
you know, but I, well, no, if it's removed, it could probably enhance danger. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
But
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, maybe it's a question for DFI, because I did find it quite strange that because it is highlighted in the report that advertisement signs, by their very nature, are designed to attract people's attention, and in this instance, they are designed to attract the attention of road users. So I found, given that the A5 is a protected route, it is a very dangerous road, and I would have assumed that there would have been a presumption against advertisement signs along a protected route, along a dangerous road. So I just wouldn't mind a wee bit more of an explanation of why DFI felt that the sign doesn't pose any adverse risks to the road safety. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Johnny, hopefully you've heard Councillor Jackson's question there. Wonder if you could assist us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Well, there are certain standards that a sign must meet if it's along a road. It has to be visible for a certain distance, so it's not suddenly come upon it. Basically, there's issues to do if it was illuminated sign. Like there's different criteria for it to meet. From a DFI roads perspective, we've assessed it against the different criteria, and in respect to that, it's not coming up as causing a road safety danger or causing a risk to road safety.
Thank you, Johnny. Councillor Jackson, you happy with that? Okay. Members, any further questions for either Suzanne or Johnny? No, not that I can see. Anyway, so okay, members. Well, members, it's over to you again. If everybody to hear for any proposals you might looking to make. Councillor McDade, thank you.
I suppose it's similar to the last couple, I'll propose that we accept the recommendation and the fact that the A5 is a protected route.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Anybody wish to second that proposal? Councillor Fleming, thank you. Okay, Maura, we have a proposition on the floor which has been seconded. So could you take us through the vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is item 8. It's proposal to accept the officer's recommendation to refuse. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Derek Hussey. Okay. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Councillor Jason Barr. Thank you. Councillor John Boyle's apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney's apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade. Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
4.
Thank you. I'll just go back, Chair. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For your information, there's somebody who keeps me switching me off there when I go to vote.
Okay, Alderman President, we'll see if we can get that sorted. Could you just mute yourself? Thank you.
Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Keith? No, sorry, Chair. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 noes, yeah.
Okay, members, that vote's carried. Thank you very much, Maura. And we'll move on to the next application, which is number 9, LA 11 2022 0479F. Recommendation to refuse. I think Laura's taken that. Thank you.
Application LA 11 2022 0479F is an application for replacement of a former dwelling with a new dwelling and domestic garage located 75 metres southwest of 68 Scrahy Road, Castlederg, and the recommendation is to refuse. So this is just some images of the application site here, the ortho on the right and the site location plan on the left. As you can see, this is a roadside site. On the ground, it slopes slightly upwards towards the east. It's comprised of a smaller agricultural field just in this section. You can see the boundary here, and then it cuts out into a larger agricultural field. Just then in terms of the site boundaries, so this boundary here is defined to the north with hedgerow and trees, as is the rear boundary, and this boundary to the south is undefined where it cuts through the field. Again, this is just some images of the application site. So the image here on the right is when you're travelling towards Kiln, the view that you would get, and that's just the opposite direction then. You can see the small stone building here just along the roadside. So this is the policy context under which the application was assessed. Includes the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 21, PPS 2, PPS 3, PPS 15, and then the design guide. In terms of consultation responses, the consultees haven't raised any objections to the proposal. Some of the consultees there, for example, DFI Roads and DFI Rivers, have proposed conditions as well as NED. They're summarised in more detail in the planning report. So first of all, just to consider this proposal under policy CTY3, which is for replacement dwellings. So CTY3 requires initially that the dwelling be replaced exhibits the characteristics of a dwelling, and then it goes on further to specify that buildings designed for agricultural purposes won't be eligible for replacement. So just in terms of this building here, officers consider that this isn't a dwelling, that it's a stone barn. You can see clearly there's a red sheet metal roof. There's no evidence that it was a dwelling in terms of chimneys, external chimneys or a fireplace internally, and no other identifiable features that would point to this being a dwelling. As you can see there as well in the image in the middle, it has an external staircase to a first floor door. And also just in terms of the window and door openings, they're not what you would expect in terms of us being a former dwelling. They're clearly a lot smaller. Internally, this is just some images of the inside of the barn. So you can see here there's no internal subdivisions. Again, no evidence of a chimney or a fireplace. There's roof timbers there with storage on the upper floor. It's currently used as agricultural storage as far as I'm aware. So therefore, just in terms of policy CTY3, we don't consider that this building exhibits the characteristics of a dwelling and that it's an agricultural barn, and therefore it's not eligible for replacement under policy CTY3. The agent has submitted a land registry map and census information, which was also submitted as allayed information to members. We received that during the processing of the application, and we've considered it in the planning report. just to summarise, the land registry map didn't identify buildings as dwellings, and the census information doesn't identify the location of house 5 and 7. There's also a declaration which has been submitted as a late item and considered in the report previously, but it doesn't distinguish that this building was a dwelling. So therefore, we're of the opinion that we don't have enough information to consider this as a dwelling, which is eligible for replacement under CTY 3. Just then, and further consideration of policy CTY 3, had we considered this to be a dwelling, the policy requires that it's sited within the established curtilage, but allows for an exception where the curtilage is restricted or then an alternative position would result in landscape heritage or amenity benefits. So the curtilage of the building is defined basically by the smaller field, which you can see outlined here in green, with a mature boundary along the southern boundary of the site. This is a small field. We would consider that to be the curtilage of that building. But as you can see from the plans here, the proposed dwelling is to be located partly and along that boundary and the open field nearby, which would mean that these trees along this boundary would have to be removed. We did discuss the siting of this with the agent, and he has advised that due to there's drainage ditches along here which require a maintenance slip, that they wouldn't be able to site a dwelling in the remainder of the field. However, officers are of the opinion that a more modest dwelling and garage could be located in this portion of the field within the field boundaries, rather than breaking out onto the open field. So therefore, in terms of that part of the policy, we also consider contrary to policy CTY 3. The proposals then considered under policy CTY 13, integration and design. So proposals for a chalet bungalow with a 6.5 metre ridge. It's much larger than the existing building, and coupled with the siting outside of the established curtilage and the loss of the existing tree boundary, it's considered that it would have a significantly greater visual impact than the existing building, particularly when approaching from the southwest. It's clear that the site is unable to provide a suitable degree of enclosure, and the development wouldn't visually integrate into the landscape. It's also considered that the design isn't acceptable. It's not traditional rural. It isn't a traditional rural design, and not appropriate to the setting, particularly given the existence of a barn on the site. So therefore, in terms of CTY 3 and CTY 13, we consider the proposals not acceptable in terms of integration and design. So you'll note from the report that this application was originally submitted under a policy CTY 10 as for a dwelling on a farm. So we've considered that in detail in the report, and I'll just summarise here as well. So we considered that the farm business is active and established, and that was confirmed by DERA. However, the farm business was already granted planning approval for a dwelling on the farm within the last 10 years. So the agent and the applicant were aware of that, which is why they changed the proposal then to a replacement dwelling. However, and also then in terms of Part C of policy CTY 10, we don't consider that the buildings visually linked or sited to cluster with a group of buildings on the farm. You can see there the application site, the dwelling of the farm owner, and then the farmyard. There's significant distances between the application site and these buildings, and due to the kind of intervening topography and the land, there's no visual linkage between the application site and these buildings. So therefore, the proposal is considered contrary to policy CTY 10. So we've also considered this proposal under policy CTY 8, ribbon development. As you can see there on the drawing, there's a number of buildings located along the roadside, and this is also clearly visible when you're travelling along the road out on site. So It's considered that given the location of the proposed dwelling, which was just kind of highlighted here for you in red, it's considered that the dwelling will add to this ribbon of development. Again, there's a small gap in here between the old stone barn and the property there at to the north. However, as the applicant has chosen to site the building outside of that gap, you know, we consider that it extends the ribbon of development. And therefore the proposal is contrary to policy CTY8 and CTY14, which would adversely affect the rural character of the area. So just in terms of all our policy considerations, we considered residential amenity under the SPPS. We don't see that there be any issues in terms of the residential amenity of the proposed residents or any nearby residents. Environmental health have just provided advice in terms of potential noise from a nearby business. In terms of natural heritage, under PPS2, ecological information has been provided. It's considered that the proposal is unlikely to have effect on any designated sites, and it won't adversely impact any protected or priority species. That was considered in terms of, I suppose, the barn being retained, as it had the potential, the at-risk potential. Under PPS 15, so the site plan indicates 5 metre maintenance strips, so it's in accordance with policy FLD2, and DFI Rivers don't have any objections. Also in terms of the access, it's proposed to use existing access, so DFI Rivers doesn't have any issues with that. In terms of PPS 3, there's that new access onto the road, and roads have determined the requirement for visibility displays, which they are content can be shown on the plans. So just to summarise, under policy CTY3 and CTY13, it's considered the building doesn't exhibit the essential characteristics of a dwelling, and therefore it's not eligible for replacement. The new dwelling isn't sited within an established curtilage of the existing building. The new dwelling would have a significantly greater visual impact than the existing building and wouldn't integrate into the landscape, and the dwelling isn't of appropriate rural design. In terms of CTY10, planning permission has already been granted for a dwelling on the farm within the last 10 years, and the new dwelling isn't visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. In terms of CTY8 and CTY14, the proposed development would add to the ribbon of development which exists, and it would result in a suburban style build-up of development. Just to note that no representations have been received to date, and refusal is recommended. And this is just the last slide here indicates the refusal reasons, which are also detailed in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for that outline of the application. We have no agent here, so members, any questions for Laura? Alderman Hussey, go ahead there.
Not questions for Laura. Actually, I do have comments on it, so I'll perhaps hold on those. There are no questions.
Councillor McHugh.
Chair, just regarding that bit around essential characteristics of a dwelling, what specifically does planning policy state that they are?
Well, CTY3 itself doesn't go into the detail of what, you know, will be specifically essential characteristics of a dwelling. However, it's established that, you know, I suppose window openings and door openings that would, you know, clearly be identifiable as, you know, what would have been maybe on a dwelling. If you have like an external chimney, for instance, you can see from the outside, an internal fireplace. Sometimes there'll be subdivision of the rooms where you can see there might have been more than one room, like a main living area and a bedroom. But we, you know, the policy doesn't specifically detail the requirements.
Chair, may I ask?
Councillor Leonard.
Just looking at the layout of that building again, and I don't know. I'm no expert on it, and I'm sure it might have been built in the 1800s, early 1900s. Is it arguable that that was a dwelling of the type at the time? Joe, as none of us here can say yes or nay to that one. I know you wouldn't build that at the minute with wee small windows, like, but perhaps at the time, rural areas, those were the style, and it could be regarded that was a dwelling for a family or two, even.
Well, I suppose we've laid out our consideration, you know, that doesn't display the characteristics of a dwelling, but that would probably be for members to, you know, decide in terms of what they think that building is. But we're content that that's you know, an agricultural building.
Thank you, Laura. I think Suzanne maybe wants to come in and maybe clarify there.
Just on your point, Councillor Leonard, I suppose what we've considered on the ground is that there's no clear evidence that it was, you know, it was a dwelling. We would see quite a lot of barns and things in agricultural, older traditional agricultural buildings as well, with that sort of layout. But appreciate your view.
Thank you, Suzanne. Councillor Leonard, do you want to follow?
Thank you for the responses there. Yeah, I just come from a rural area myself. I know lots of cases, buildings that are now barns were in fact dwelling houses at a time, some generations ago. But no, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard, for your comments. Duly noted. Anyone else? Pardon? Alderman Hussey, any further questions? No.
As I said, unless there are other questions, I want to go back to what I consider the two important elements within the presentation. That's item 9, consultee reports, and item 10. Northern Ireland Water have not raised any issues. Environmental Health have provided advice regarding construction, noise dust septic tank arrangements, radon. No problem with conditions of that nature being placed. DFI roads have no objections, subject to conditions, provision of access, etc. DERA confirm the farm business. DFI request a condition maintenance strips. NIEA, no concerns, subject to the existing building being retained. That's there. Shared environmental service, no viable connection, no assessment required. And more specifically, representation, no letters of objection or support received. If one looks at figure 5, and I know this particular area quite well, it's a road that I would have travelled regularly from Castleberg through to Fermanagh. And the entire topography, when you hit that stretch of road, as far as I'm concerned, there's a real cluster of buildings there, dwellings and other buildings on both sides of the road. Not where this particular proposal is, but it's on a bend in the road also, which to my mind closes off what is suggested there of a ribbon development. That's the closure of that. You'll not get anything beyond that other than round the corner. So visually, coming the other way, the proposal would blend in with the dwellings that are already there, and there's a mixture of types of dwelling. Should they be bungalow, 1.5 story and 2 story, of various designs and types. And I've looked at the design of the building, and I'm a rural dweller, and I don't actually see anything wrong with it. You know, if a neighbour came to me and built that beside me, I wouldn't have the slightest problem. I don't see what the issue is with the design, and I'm concerned that this restrictive nature that applies to people who wish to live in the countryside. And this particular applicant, to the best of my knowledge, is not somebody coming out of town to live. It's a local person from the area who wants to build his home where he has grown up and where his family are and where the farm is. I'm prepared to propose that the recommendation be overturned and that we accept this application. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have any reasons there? Any reasons for the? I know there. I think there is 4 refusal reasons. Alderman Hussey, if you want to
If I
outline those.
go to the refusals, then find that. Yep. Well, it says there are no overriding reasons why this development is essential. Well, that is subjective in my opinion as opposed to objective. The new building is not sited within the established curtilage of the existing building. It's already clear that the NIEA, I think it is, want the original building retained, and to actually try and put this type of building in along with that wouldn't be feasible. Item 4, proposed development would add to a ribbon. I would maintain that it closes off that particular ribbon that exists, and would result in suburban build-up. I don't see it as suburban. I see it as a rural cluster being completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor McHugh.
Well, Chair, on the same way as Councillor Hussey, I prepared to second his proposal. Just want to say, we still give cognizance to the Stavan area plan, which states under 123.2.1 about being more sympathetic, I suppose, to rural dwellings in the countryside. So that's part of my reason for seconding it. I also think, given the evidence brought forward by Mr. Rankin about the site having been previously occupied as a dwelling, I would be prepared to interpret that as being, a replacement dwelling, which would therefore negate some of the policy considerations. So that's why I'd be prepared to second Councillor Hussey's.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McHugh. Maura, we have a proposer and a seconder to overturn the officer's recommendations. So take us through the vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is item 9. It's a proposal not to accept officer's recommendation to refuse. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Kerrigan. Councillor Jason Barr. Okay. Councillor John Boyle, his apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Okay. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
I'll abstain, Maura.
Okay. Councillor Conor Heaney, his apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Okay. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Against.
Okay. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Thank you. I'll just go back. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. No.
Okay, members, that proposal is carried. 9-4, 1 against and 1 abstention. Thank you. Next application on our list is number 12. It's LA 11 2023-1591. A recommendation to approve. And Laura, taking that? Thank you, Laura.
Application LA 11 2023-1591F as a proposed story and a half rear extension to a dwelling at 30 Donahady Road, Strabane. The recommendations to approve. As you'll see in the planning report, this application is before members as applicant spouse is an elected member of the council. So this is just the site location plan. You can see the dwelling here where the extension is proposed, just sitting north there of Donahady Road. In terms of the policy context, the Strabane Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 7 addendum, residential extensions and alterations, and PPS 3, this is the policy under which this application was assessed. This just shows the proposed floor plans and the site layout. As you can see, the extension's just the rear here of the dwelling, in this wee section, which is outlined in red. This is just some images here of the existing property, and just the area of the site where the extension is going to be constructed. Again, just some more images showing the rear amenity space of the property and a view towards the dwelling itself. So terms of policy EXT1 of PPS 7 addendum, it's considered that the scale, massing and design of the proposal are sympathetic with the built form and the appearance of the existing property, and won't detract from the appearance or character of the surrounding rural area. And as detailed in the report, it's considered that the proposed finishes to the overall dwelling will improve the overall appearance of it and the rural area. The proposal doesn't adversely affect the amenity of any neighbouring residents. It won't cause any acceptable loss to any trees or landscape features, and there will be sufficient space within the curtilage of the property for recreational and domestic uses. You can see that just in the plans previously, given the extent of the site. Just to summarise, the proposal complies with PPS 7 addendum. It's a suitable development within the rural area. It's subordinate to the existing dwelling, and the finishes will improve the overall appearance. We haven't received any representations on this proposal, and therefore approval is recommended, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Laura, for the report. And Chair, this is only coming before this committee because it's a relative of a member of council. It's a relatively straightforward application, and on that basis, I'm prepared to propose to accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I see Councillor Barr second that as well. On that basis, we need to go to a vote on this. Yeah.
Members, this is item 12, and it's a proposal to accept officer's recommendation to approve. Alderman Alan Breslin.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Hold on. Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Councillor John Boyle's apologies. Councillor Sean Fleming.
For.
Okay. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Conor Heaney's apologies. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For.
Councillor Fergal Leonard.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine McDade. Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Mooney.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Patrick Murphy.
For.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Again, was unanimous, and I think that through my notes, that completes the applications for today. So next, members, as you can see from the agenda, open for information. Numbers 11 to 16, I'm going to just group them together. And if members have any, wish to raise any matters from open for information on those issues, then please let me know. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, I see, are you indicating or?
Chair, it was item number 15. I suppose the funding for planning advice or community places. I wasn't sure if that was unfair information or did it require a decision, because it is suggesting that we write a letter. And I suppose the importance of this committee, and we always want to try and get more and more people involved in the planning system, and community places play a vital role in supporting communities in engaging with the planning system, and any cuts to their funding. I think it would be apt for us as a committee to try and support them in any way we can. So I know it's suggested it's unfair information, but I'm proposing that we do write a letter as suggested, and they object to the cuts to the funding for community places. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for raising that. I see Councillor Barr has seconded that proposal. And I thank you for bringing that out of information because this is a very important matter. This organisation does provide a valuable service to the community in relation to planning issues, especially in relation to members of the community who can't access planning advice because maybe due to expense or different matters. But thank you anyway, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Barr. Councillor Leonard, yes?
Thank you very much, Chair. Could I mention something under agenda item number 14? It's on page 415. I've got serious concerns with the delay with the consultation process or that from the Environment Agency. So as most members and staff will know, there's been some issue with NIA providing consultation responses with regards ammonia. The problem is that even in our own council area, there are seven people waiting on information on their planning consultation, and it's stopped through no fault of their own. And my concern is, I'm sure these farmers are out a lot of financial costs at this time, or maybe they have loans out on this, and well know that interest rates are going up. So there's a financial concern, but there's also the mental health stress concern for these farmers as well. Again, through no fault of their own, and also no fault of the planning staff in council as well. Could I ask, I know we were told at our training day there's no stupid question. We're going to test that now. So is there any other avenue for the council to explore to get this information back so we could progress the applications?
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. I'll pass that to Suzanne there. I'll take that for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard, and definitely there's no stupid questions when there's environmental issues considered. I suppose where we are with this, the difficulty we would have is firstly, NIA are the statutory nature conservation body. So when we would be making a decision on any of those applications, by law, we're required to take their view on board. If they don't give us a view, it's very, very difficult. We have had some advice before on, what to do when they're taking it off a long time. What we might do as a result of your question is we could seek to review that legal advice just to give us security as a council that we do hold them until NIA come back, or we decide we don't hold them. I think the other issue that we have to be cognizant of is the fact that NIA are being investigated by the OEP. Okay, so as a council to stay outside of that process, we wouldn't want to be investigated by the OEP either. And obviously, we've indicated that, or NIA have indicated in Mark Hammond's letter that they're going to produce a call for evidence very soon on their new ammonia protocol. I just don't know when that's going to be. So we will, as an officer team, take away your query, and we will speak to the legal team, and we'll maybe get some other legal advice on it. We can report that back into committee for everyone's information and consideration.
I appreciate that very much. I know that letter was dated at the end of May, and Mr. Hammond said the coming weeks. So we're in July, and I think this is rolling on a number of months. Would there be any benefit then in proposing that we write to Mr. Hammond to see if there is any timescale, or to give everybody a better idea? Because I do have a genuine concern for all the farmers and the impact on them, and obviously they want to supply the milk chain and the egg producers. So there's a lot of people impacted by this delay.
Are you content for us to circulate a letter for you or to the chair to view, to consider and sign before we send it, or?
happy for you to send it to all committee members, and
Yeah.
then if they want to make amendments or they want to introduce anything, then they can
If you
come
want
back
to
to
think
us.
of it. Yep.
Based on that, I'm happy to sign it off then,
Yes.
based
Thank you.
on Councillor Leonard and everybody else's views anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
You happy enough, Councillor Leonard? Yeah. Alderman Hussey?
Yeah, subsequent to that, and totally support Councillor Leonard in what he's saying there. And of course, NIEA wouldn't be the only consultee who can be slow in responding. Is it possible to know how many applications are held up because of slow responses? Should it be from DFI, NI Water, Rivers Agency, whatever? How many are actually paused at the moment, waiting on responses from those?
I'll bring in head of planning, Alderman.
That's a very difficult question to answer on. We've obviously got a piece of work. Councillor Hussey from last committee asked us about the number of 24 months plus applications. That would be something we would have to go and check, but it's not something we have at hand because it changes, as you can imagine. You know, with whatever live applications that we have in the system, at the moment that should be touching what, so it goes from 550 to 600 applications. So what stage they're at and how many, which consultees we're waiting for, it'd be actually quite difficult at this point. But if there are particular consultees, we do have concerns about the delays, and we have been raising as an officer team. But there's definitely in our improvement projects, in the autumn, we're talking about doing various things, but there's definitely a need to somehow strategize how we manage, our engagement with the consultees and given this extent and the number and how that pattern is increasing or decreasing, as the case may be. We don't have that information, and you're quite right. I think we do need that. But the current situation with the portal, it's been quite difficult to get reports even for the request that you made last month. I think somebody hopefully will have gone back to saying we've been working on that. So I'll take that away, Councillor Hussey, and we'll build that into, as I say, some of the improvement projects, and we'll see, hopefully try and get that information in due course.
Appreciate that, Chair. And, if we look at the list sitting there, you see one 2017 still sitting there. That's disgraceful. And it's not your fault. It's the consultees.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I'm going to revert back to number 15. Head of planning, wants to just come in again on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, members, Councillor Jackson's quite right. Item 15 and 16 should have been down for decision. And in terms of 15, just clarifying, Councillor Jackson, are you content that the draft that's there, that template can be used? Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to double check that. And obviously I want some feedback on item 16 in terms of the suggestion there. Members regarding at this stage, that was just an interim, very detailed interim document that we got from Catherine McFerrin. Was quite sort of, I just wanted some feedback. She has given us an opportunity to meet with her, and I was suggesting in my paper that we would take up that recommendation. But clearly this isn't a draft at this stage. This is just an initial discussion. So I felt, given the nature of what was suggested at the minute, because it's a lot more complex, because as members, you will be aware that our response in terms of this type of issue is much wider, and our concern about having an extra category, for instance, in terms of intermediate, and also looking at majors and regionals as well. So I've suggested in this paper that initially we would go back and accept the offer, that officers would meet and have some sort of engagement. And then, but due course, obviously there's going to be a draft consultation that will come out, which will be formally consulted on as a council, and we'll obviously bring that to committee and discuss in detail. So just want feedback on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Maura, for updating us in relation to that there. Members, any comments or views in relation to that, or happy to adopt the proposal put forward or the views put forward by head of planning? Yeah, I think that's okay, Maura. Thank you. Now. Sorry. I think we probably do formulate a proposal, eh?
If I need a proposal, I'm more than happy to propose that.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Chair.
Councillor Jackson, and see Councillor Barr has seconded as well. Thank you. Any further? Members, any? No? Okay, members, I think we're going to do confidential now, so I need a proposer and seconder. Thank you.